My name is Valerie Harryman, and my speech is called The Road to Happiness. Growing up, I was taught that you determine your happiness based on your success, as well as your failures. Between my mother and my grandparents, it was clear that there were different meanings and paths to take to achieve that success, as well as different ways that were considered failing. My mother and father divorced when I was very young. My mother was hardworking and a businesswoman who was vacant for most of my early memories as she was busy establishing her career. My father was on the other end of the employment spectrum. He bounced from job to job with no real desire to work. Most of my early childhood, my sister and I spent hanging out with Dad. Though I don't remember a lot about the time when my parents split, throughout adolescence I learned more about what led to the doom of my parents' marriage. My mother never went to college. She grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and then graduated high school and moved to Des Moines, where she decided to immediately start working to build her way up in employment. My dad grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, where he graduated high school and received a full-ride scholarship to a university in Illinois. He attended the university for 2 years and then decided that it wasn't for him and that he moved back to Des Moines to begin working. My parents met a few years later and then married. My mother had always felt that my father wasted his opportunity to further his education and build his qualifications to obtain high-paying employment. My mother worked hard to learn skills and study hard to pass exams and earn designations to work her way up in the insurance world. My mother always resented my father for giving up his education and always being okay with not working and not contributing, as she would say. This was her polite way of explaining his faults to me. Eventually my parents divorced, and my mom continued to care for my sister and I as she worked full-time. She married my stepfather, who she had been working with at her place of employment. Our lives immediately changed. We went from a 2-bedroom apartment to a large house in Beaverdale. We began being able to take family vacations, going out to eat, and being able to buy toys when we went to the store, all things that weren't options before. My stepfather graduated from college with a business degree and then went straight to work for a company that he was still with after 20 years. He made good money and in my mother's eyes was living to his full potential. As my sister and I got older, my mom would constantly make comments about my dad's work status and say something to the effect of, "That man never wanted to work. I'm not sure how he has become so complacent to live a life full of failure." While growing up, my mother always stressed how important college was. "Without an education, you're setting yourself up for failure," is what she would say. She would even throw in that if she could do it all over again, she would go back to school to become a nurse, because nurses were always in demand. At every school conference she would drag me to, we would review my transcript of grades received for that semester, and then she'd go on her rant about how they would affect my ability to get into college, which would then affect my employment in the future. To her, college was my only way to achieve success. It would open the door to endless employment opportunities, allowing me to make more money and achieve happiness, that all of that hard work would eventually pay off in the end. My grandparents had a bit of a different story of success. My grandma and grandpa owned a small, quaint house in Valley Junction, Iowa. It was full of pictures of their family, as well as endless amounts of records for their record player. They spent all day, every day together at their antique shop in Valley Junction. My mother would say that store was full of old crap, but to them each and every single piece that they sold was special in some way. Neither of my grandparents had any schooling past high school. They found a passion for antiques and made it their life to help others find unique things for their own lives. My grandparents made enough money to live off of, but no extra. They did not live an extravagant life, but to them, their life was meaningful. My grandpa would constantly remind us grandchildren that as long as you put your family first, you're never a failure. Typically, this message would come on Sunday afternoons, where we would spend all day having a barbecue at their house for someone's birthday. Though my grandparents had a successful small antique business that was their passion, they felt their true success in life was the family that they had made. These are just a few personal examples that I have growing up where I was taught about how to live a meaningful life and achieve happiness. While growing up being taught these lessons, I never really thought about how different people's views on happiness were. How do you choose which route to go? What if you don't pick the right one? Do you automatically set yourself up for failure? Is there a right and a wrong way to live your life? For my next speech, I will research sources to figure out how the amount of education, quality of job you have, and family choices you make affect your personal happiness. Thank you.